Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Lives Transforming Video Training Series. Our series is based on the book Freedom by author Derek Wilder. My name is Brent Henderson. The Bible says in Matthew 28:19 that we're to go and make disciples.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that, as I was growing up in church, as I was growing up going to college at a Christian liberal arts university, discipleship usually became something I did, about some rules I had to follow that would make me either a better disciple or make me a disciple, or things I needed to do or stop doing. And I think this is probably the thing that trips us up the most, is we equate our actions with whether we are a disciple and whether we are actually growing as a disciple. One of my favorite verses is in Luke chapter 6. And Jesus tells us that you don't get wormy apples off a healthy tree, nor good apples off a diseased tree. The health of the apple tells the health of the tree. You must begin with your own life-giving lives. It's who you are, not what you say and do, that counts. In other words, it's your true being that brims over into your words and deeds. And here's how we kind of explain that. We use this little acronym TEA, which stands for T is thoughts, E is emotions, and A are actions. Most of us think if we can just get our actions lined up with what they should be, then all of a sudden we're going to be a disciple. What we see here in Luke chapter 6 is that there's much more to it than that. It runs much deeper. God is not nearly as concerned about our actions as he is about the health of what's going on inside of us.
So you're saying that basically the action is kind of that unhealthy fruit.
Yes. The thoughts and emotions are the roots, the things that are inside of us. And when those are healthy, then the actions naturally happen in a healthy way. Unfortunately, if these are not healthy, the thoughts and the emotions are not healthy, then the actions won't be healthy. And here's the trick. But even when the actions are healthy, if they're not lining up, in other words, if your thoughts and emotions are unhealthy and you're acting as if you are, well, then it's just simply disingenuous. It's not real change. It's not really being a disciple. It's faking being a disciple.
I mean, yeah, I guess people can follow through with the actions, but unless they're getting to this deeper level of the emotion and then the thought, nothing's really going to change.
God is much more concerned about your insides than he is about your outside, because he knows if you have an inside that's healthy, then naturally the outside will take care of itself.
I was always taught as a kid, hey, you would just change that unhealthy action, whatever it is, if you would just study harder, if you would, whatever those things are we look at. We tend to, maybe in the church, I know in my church growing up, they'd say, if you'd stop drinking, smoking, running around, your life would be so much better. But can you kind of give me an example of how that maybe plays out, how the action doesn't really change us? It goes deeper?
Well, I have teenage kids, and clearly if my kid thinks they're going to get in trouble, then, for instance, Courtney, let's say, she's 17 years old. If she thinks she's going to get in trouble for something, well, then she's not going to act in a way that's going to cause her to get in trouble. But the problem with that is if her inside isn't actually lining up with what's going on the outside, then it becomes one of those things where she only does the right thing when somebody's looking.
Right. She wants to any of us, we want to get out of punishment.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what occurs here is that we find out that there's actually no real change that's occurred. She just is acting like she's changed.
Right.
Okay? And so that's the concern here that Jesus is talking about. This is really about a healthy inside leading to a natural, healthy outside, as opposed to trying to make an action happen just to try not to be punished, even though inside you're all messed up. So what happens is with my teenager, she could say, okay, fine, I'm going to follow a rule and not drink because my dad says not to. However, when I'm not looking,
right,
see, the inside hasn't changed, and so she'll just go to drinking. So we really haven't changed anything. It just looks like it. In other words, we have created compliance, but we haven't created real life change.
Yeah. Boy, I've been there, done this. You're trying to put on your best front, and what's going on the inside is something different. And what I know I've experienced personally is I don't have, when I'm acting out in the action, just trying to fake it till I make it, I don't get a whole lot of peace.
And a good example of this, I think, is this little pyramid, where our actions come from our emotions, and our emotions come from our thoughts, and our thoughts come from our beliefs. And so what happens is when your actions are going in a certain direction, but your emotions or your thoughts are going in a different direction, peace can't occur because it's like you're being torn apart. Part of you is going one way, the other part of you is going another, and instead of being integrated as a person, you're actually disintegrated.
I got to tell you real quick about a dream I had last night, which is so amazing because it fits right in with this. I dreamed that my son was going back, and he had to take a finals at the end of his year, and I went with him and sat beside him. Well, he was missing some questions, and he couldn't get the answers, and I saw it. And I didn't want him to fail, so what I did was, when the teacher wasn't looking, I took his paper, and I began to write in some of the answers. Well, I thought this is going to solve the problem. The teacher collected all the papers, put them in a stack, and as we're getting ready to walk out the door in this dream, I'm thinking, wait a second. She's going to know that's not Garrett's handwriting, that's my handwriting, and I'm going to get caught. So then I started in my mind thinking, in this dream, I've got to somehow go over, cause a distraction, get the paper, and either take it so maybe the teacher thinks she lost it or something. But the whole point of this dream was I was trying to do an action to get my son out of trouble. Then I was trying to do an action to get myself out of trouble. But even in this dream, the whole time, I was having no peace.
Yeah.
Constant turmoil.
Yeah, absolutely, because you were, in fact, disintegrated.
Yeah.
What was going on inside wasn't connecting with what was going on outside. You know, another one of my favorite verses is 2 Corinthians 10:5. We use our powerful God tools for smashing warped philosophies, tearing down barriers erected against the truth of God, fitting every loose thought and emotion and impulse into the structure of life shaped by Christ. In other words, it's not just about impulses or actions that need to be structured and shaped by Christ, but instead our thoughts and emotions lined up with our impulses or actions that then structure and shape our life by Christ. And I think by Christ here is extremely important, and that's what we'll talk about now. Let's go back to this illustration we were looking at earlier. One of kind of a pop culture perspective of this is okay, I understand my actions are coming from something internal. So what I need to do now is I need to think positive, or I need to somehow get my thoughts to change so I can be a better person. And that's a very humanistic way of attempting to change yourself. I love Romans chapter 12, verse 2. It says, be transformed by renewing your mind. It's not about me trying to force my mind to change in order for me to somehow get good enough to live up to God's standards. But instead, it's actually written in the passive. When it says be transformed, it's like saying, let God transform you by renewing your mind.
How does that work? We all have been maybe taught, hey, if you'll just go and memorize all these scriptures, it's going to change your life. Is that really what's changing me?
No, actually not, because we can memorize a lot of words, and that's not really got the power to change. But what does have the power to change is God. God's word in the form of truth. So, for instance, let's look at this illustration. Our actions, our unhealthy actions, are coming from unhealthy emotions and thoughts. They're coming ultimately from beliefs that are not based on what's true. They're not based on God's truth.
Right.
And so in light of that, that's why I have lies over here. It's this area over here we're living in. A lot of times what people will say is, well, just change what you're thinking. Just changing what you're thinking isn't going to solve the problem. Because if you change what you're thinking and it doesn't line up with the truth, with God's truth, then all of a sudden you're just humanly trying to change some thought to make yourself feel better.
Right.
But once we line our thoughts up and our beliefs up with God's truth, now all of a sudden it's not us that's changing ourselves, but the thoughts and emotions that are becoming healthier and the actions that result out of that are actually then a result of God in us. Mm-hmm. They're a result of God's truth, the living Word, the living God changing us as opposed to us attempting to either change our actions and being disintegrated, like we talked about
Right.
earlier, or two, trying to force ourselves to think differently about things that hopefully will make us feel better. Again, this changing ourselves doesn't work.
I used to find myself, if I was kind of feeling down, I would try to think about some future event that I was looking forward to. But the problem was, every time I would try to change my thinking about some future thing, I found myself living from high to high.
Yeah. And the other problem is it doesn't ever solve the problem you were trying to ignore.
Yeah,
It still exists.
yeah.
So what we're going to do here at Lives Transforming is we're going to take over the next number of weeks, next number of months, we're going to start looking at what thoughts are we thinking? What are the types of thoughts that we think that are based on lies that move these emotions into unhealthiness and the actions to follow? And then we're going to kind of take those thoughts and move one step deeper and look at some of the different destructive beliefs that we have that don't line up with the truth, don't line up with God's truth, and be able to analyze them in a way that says, okay, is that really true? Is that belief something that's really true? And if not, what is true? There's a number of these distorted thoughts, a number of these distorted or destructive beliefs that we have, and a lot of times we don't even know they're destructive. They seem so normal in our language and how we've been brought up. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to analyze some of the different thoughts and some of the different beliefs as we continue to have these webinars in the future.
You know, I can tell you, I am looking forward to this so much. This teaching that you're about to embark on, listen to, changed my life in a huge way. About 5 years ago, my wife, our marriage, our children, even the community that we interact with when we're all walking together. There's a lot here, so don't be overwhelmed. It may feel like you're kind of getting a drink from a fire hydrant at first, but we're going to put this in bite-sized chunks. This is the most transformational teaching I have ever been a part of. Fasten your seatbelts. Allow God to kind of just open you up, get into your world, and the scriptures are going to transform you from the inside out.